Hey everybody, this is Can't Stop the Unk, and I'm here with lesson 3 for Intro to Java. And today we're going to go over arrays and what they are, how to declare them, how to put stuff in them. So before we move on to the actual Java part of things for arrays, we're going to go over what an array is. So I'm going to pull up this picture right here. And so basically what an array is, it's just a list of things. That's how you should think of it. It's just a list of things grouped together, and they have indexes. So for here, you have an array and you have 4 slots, right? So that's, you can list 4 things in this array and you can put stuff in them. Like you can put dog at index 0 and cat at index 2. And what you should notice about arrays is that they are what we call zero-based indexing, which means the element dog starts at index 0. And then cat is the third element starting at index 2. So now you might be wondering, how do you create an array in Java? So we're going to go to Eclipse, and what we're going to do here is first declare the size of the array. So I declared an int and set the value to 100. And then to create an array, what you do is you put brackets around it like I did here. So you put your primitive type. So in this case, we're going to use an array of integers, right? So we're going to have a list of integers, and we're going to have 100 of them in this array. So what you do is you put the type. So if you wanted a list of strings, so you want to put like a bunch of words, like 100 words in it, you would put string here instead. But I want to have a list of integers, or array of integers. So I put the type and put brackets around it. So when you put brackets around it, it tells Java that you want an array instead of just an int. And then you put the variable name as you normally do. And then instead of giving it a value, like a strict value like I did up here with an int, you use the keyword new int right here. And then you put brackets around it again, but inside the brackets you put how many elements you want in the array. So if, in this case, I want 100, right? But I have a variable name size of array, so that's what I'm going to do. So this will create the array of 100 integers, right? To hold 100 integers. Now, we're gonna detour a little bit and explain what is actually happening inside the computer when you type this specific line of code. So what Java does when it sees this part new int size of array in brackets, what it does is it goes into your computer memory and it allocates memory. Java will allocate memory for 100 integers, right? It'll create the space for 100 integers. And that's what you're doing when you do it in here. So that when you fill out the array with integers, Java will place each integer that you want, each integer value in memory, in its computer memory, right? So for example, when we fill out the array, what you normally do is you use a for loop to fill it out, because like in the last lesson, we talked about why you use a for loop or when you use a while loop. Well, in this case, we know, basically you almost always know what your size of the array is. So most of the time you're going to use a for loop, right? So the syntax goes as follows. You do your standard introduction to a for loop. You declare some integer, set it equal to 0. And then you say, you have your condition. So when it's I less than the length of the array, right? So the way you can do this is you can use 100 here instead, right? Because you know the length of the array. But I used array int, which is my variable name for the array, dot length. So what you can do is, when you have an array, you can type array int, and you can use what we call the dot operator. And Eclipse will show you like these kind of functions, things that you can get, and we'll go over that later, and probably in lesson 4 or 5. But basically know that when you use this dot operator, you can get the length of the array. And see, so this will actually return 100. So that's why I use array int.length instead of 100. They're basically the same thing. So yeah, just to sum it up, array int.length grabs the length of the array, which is 100, and that's our condition. As long as I is less than 100, we want to keep going through the for loop, right? Because we want to fill out the entire array. And then we do I++. And then what I did here inside the for loop is that in my array, we're gonna have
every single element be equal to 15, right? So this is how you actually fill out the array. So for all from index 0 all the way to index 99, every single one is going to hold the value of 15. So if we run the program right here, and I'm just going to prove to you that it does hold 15. So ignore this bottom section here. So the first two print line statements are referring to these. So at index 5, I just picked random indexes. At index 5 and index 99, they both hold the value of 15, right? So what we're going to go over next really quickly is how do you access individual elements of the array. So if you look at this print line statement, I have this string, the value at index 5, and then quotations around it. And then I have array int bracket 5, right? So when you set up your array and fill it out with your for loop, then you can access the values in that array, right? So you just tell it what index you want it at. So you put your variable name array int, and let's say you want to access index 15, then you just put 15 in it, and it's going to give you that value at index 15, right? And it's just really that simple. All you do is put the variable name, put brackets around it, and inside the brackets just tell it what index you want. Now what happens is if you uncomment this line of code right here, you'll see that I'm accessing index 100, which doesn't exist, right? We go from 0 through 99, right? We have 100 elements, but our index is from 0 to 99. So there is no such thing as index 100. So when you try to access index 100, what Java will do is it's going to complain. It'll print out the first two things down here, and then it'll give you an index out of bounds array exception, right? So basically Java will complain to you and tell you that you accessed an index in the array that doesn't exist, right? It's out of bounds. So this is probably the most common complaint that Java will throw at you when you first work with arrays. Now moving forward, we're gonna go over different types of how you can fill out an array, just like little small techniques, and we're gonna go over them really quickly. And just a quick note, I increased my font size because I forgot to do it at the beginning of the video, so sorry. Anyways, so we're gonna move on and look at this section right here, this part of the code. And what you're gonna notice is that we're gonna use the same array, but we're gonna overwrite it. So remember how I told you that you can access each element of the array just by putting a bracket around it and putting putting whatever index you want in between the brackets, right? And that's basically what we did up here in this for loop. So in here, we're gonna do the same thing, but instead of setting each element to 15, we're just gonna set it to I, which is our counter, right? Which is our for loop counter. So what this is gonna hold at index 0, the value is gonna be 0, right? Because that's when I is equal to 0 the first time it goes through the loop. At index 0, which is I equals 0, it's gonna equal I equals 0. So at index 0, we're gonna have 0. At index 1, it's gonna go to 1. So it's gonna basically match the index and value. So if we print it out, you're gonna notice that the index values change from 5. At index 5, the value is 5. At index 99, it's at 99, right? So, and then we're gonna move on and we're gonna manually change the values now. So at index 5, let's say you don't want it to match the index, the value index to match. So you want to change it to something like 100, right? And at index 99, you want some value like 1,000, right? So you can manually change each element in the array. And when I print it, you're gonna see that index 5 now has a value of 100 and index 99 has a value of 1,000. So this is it for lesson 3, part 1, going over arrays. And in the next video, we're gonna go over part 2, which will contain information about how to copy arrays and how to work with 2D arrays and higher dimension arrays. So I'll see you then.